Hey guys, Kiwi here. In this video I'll be discussing episode 6 of HBO's The Last of Us, so let's just jump right into it. The episode is mainly the Jackson/Tommy episode, and it did not disappoint. Not only did all the actors involved do an amazing job with the great script given to them, but Jackson looked amazing too, along with giving many subtle hints and nods at The Last of Us Part 2, which will become season 2 of the show, so I won't be getting into any of that for spoilers, but just keep that in mind for anyone who's played the games. Also, we get a 3-month time skip at the beginning of the episode going into winter, which was an interesting choice as it's still fall at this point in the game. I like how the show did a seasonal time skip, and I assume they introduced winter early due to probably not having another time skip going into episode 7 or 8 rather after Joel gets stabbed at the end of this episode like they did in the game. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves, as I want to quickly run through what I thought was interesting about the episode in chronological order. The couple at the beginning that Joel asked directions from was great. Apparently their actors have a pretty die-hard fan base, so that's nice to see. Also, Joel telling the husband that his answer better be the same as his wife's is a nice touch to a moment from the game, but I feel like I'll be discussing more of that in a future episode. The show continues to brilliantly work on the Joel and Ellie dynamic, such as during the campfire scene, but although they seem to be getting closer and closer each episode, at the end of the day, Joel still keeps her at an arm's length apart. And as I said, we get some nice season 2 foreshadowing, along with Joel comforting Ellie about how creating a vaccine will work, as Ellie's beginning to get doubts after not being able to save Sam. It's interesting hearing Joel confront Ellie in this way, considering Joel previously told her during their truck drive that wanting to save the world is just a pipe dream. Ellie then defies Joel and keeps watch due to him falling asleep halfway through the night, showing how she's capable of doing things that Joel is protective over, but she's only able to prove it if she defies what Joel says, similar to her having a gun in Kansas City. Moving on, once they get surrounded, it's interesting how the dog didn't sniff out Ellie for being infected, considering the Fedra detector at the end of episode 1 did. I mean, they are two completely different methods of detecting if someone's infected or not, but it still added some nice tension. And there's not much else to say here, so going into Jackson, we get a really nice reunion between Joel and Tommy, as you can tell that they genuinely missed each other regardless of the falling out that they may have had in the past. I also really like how the show included how Jackson gets their electricity from a nearby power plant that they got running, which we see Joel and Ellie come across, even though we don't spend time actually at the plant like we did in the games. This of course leads into our potential Dina cameo as the girl that was snooping on Ellie and Joel at the cafeteria. Twitter was in quite an uproar over it, with Neil Druckmann playing coy by neither confirming or denying it, but to be honest, since Dina didn't have any speaking lines, her cameo kind of falls flat in my opinion. It's cool to see that she exists in Jackson during part 1/season 1, but that's about it. So after getting a tour of the place, Joel and Tommy split off from Maria and Ellie to catch up and have a few drinks. Joel notably lies about Tess, which reminds me of how he lied about her death to Bill in the game, as being honest about her death would require him to open up about his emotions, which is something that he doesn't like doing. Now, Joel tries convincing Tommy to tag along for the rest of their journey, but Tommy declines being able to leave as he's built a life in Jackson, revealing that Maria is even pregnant with his kid. I do really like this conversation between them, as it is a remixed version of the conversation that we had with Tommy at the power plant in the game. Joel gets selfishly offended at this, as he appears to be mad that Tommy's having a kid due to what happened to Sarah. Tommy is sympathetic towards Sarah, but I definitely agree with him telling Joel that just because his life stopped, that doesn't mean Tommy's needs to as well. Joel begins to have panic attacks throughout the episode, which has been turned into a meme, but to take it seriously, it could stem from multiple reasons, as he tells Tommy during a private conversation later that night. From Joel not thinking he's capable to look after Ellie anymore, or feeling fear in the world when he could previously handle it, along with dealing with the past trauma as Sarah. There's a lot of self-deprecating going on here, and Pedro absolutely kills it during this scene as he practically breaks down in tears over it. He also tells Tommy that Ellie's immune and that Marlene hired them to smuggle her, but that Tess got bit in the process. A combination of how Joel feels along with the information that he tells Tommy convinces him to take Ellie instead of him after he practically has to beg Tommy to do so. Meanwhile, Ellie learned about Sarah through Maria and went to a movie night but left and ends up overhearing parts of Joel's conversation with Tommy. This leads to her realizing that Joel wants to ditch her, which hurts as he's the only person that she's cared about who hasn't either left her or died, which she ends up confronting him about later that night. I really love how they adapted this conversation between Joel and Ellie from the games. Pedro and Bella do a great job in this scene, especially Bella, who just pours her heart out as Ellie to Joel, with Joel giving a cold-hearted response and the iconic line, "You're not my daughter, and I'm sure not your dad," to paraphrase. This scene perfectly shows how scared Ellie is to be left alone, which was hinted at in the last episode during her time with Sam. Joel thinks that she doesn't understand what loss is, but she clearly does, as we'll even see in the next episode. Interesting how Ellie tries bringing up Sarah and she's sympathetic towards her, but doesn't want to be compared to her as she's not the same. But with Joel being unable to talk about his emotions and truly open up about it, he gets offended whenever Sarah gets brought up and does not want anything to do with that conversation. And as a side note, I don't mind that they cut out the whole thing about Ellie running away. In the game, I felt like it was kind of contrived how Ellie could have got past all the raiders that you have to fight to catch up to her, which made it feel like the game was only made that way to give some artificial combat sections during the Jackson story. The show follows the same story where Ellie is perceptive enough to tell that Joel wants to hand her off to Tommy, except instead of Ellie running away because of it, Joel and Ellie just talk about it in the house that they're staying at, which is completely fine to me. Now, after having some time to think alone, Joel realizes that he doesn't want to give Ellie up, but it feels like there's a scene missing to either further elaborate on this or some scene from earlier to further elaborate on his companionship with Ellie in general. Having a quick flashback to Sarah was a nice touch, but I would have preferred for them to just go all out and have more of a flashback, like give her some talking lines, maybe show a scene of them together during Christmas, instead of just having a brief glimpse at her as Joel thinks about her. Even that in mind, I do still like how things turned out, with Joel deciding to take Ellie in the morning instead of Tommy, even if it's hard for him to admit it. It is kind of touching that the second Ellie realizes that Joel is saying that he's gonna go with her, she just instantly goes, "Yep, alright, let's go." She doesn't even want to question it, doesn't want to allow him to second guess himself and change his mind. This is definitely a standout moment for the relationship between Joel and Ellie, as it's one of the last times that Joel is really standoffish towards her about it and actually decides to start opening up to her. We've seen little moments like that here and there, but I really feel like this is the time that Joel's gonna stop pretending that he doesn't care about her. And to be honest, I thought the episode would have ended right there with them leaving Jackson together, so it's interesting how they decided to include the university situation at the end of the episode with Joel being injured. On one hand, it is kind of a shame how much of the university situation was cut or dumbed down, but I see what they were going for. I assume the creators wanted to have Joel getting injured as a cliffhanger moment, similar to the game, but they figured that there wasn't enough material at the university to pad out an entire episode with, so instead they just snuck it in at the end of this one. So they get to the university and they see signs that the Fireflies were there, but that they're gone now. They see their next destination, which is Salt Lake City, but they get interrupted due to seeing that raiders are walking around the university below them. Now, I was expecting one of the raiders to take a shot at Joel trying to look out the window like in the game. I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't see that, but I guess it doesn't really matter. I suppose the creators wanted Joel and Ellie to still have the upper hand so they could sneak to their horse before they get confronted. I was surprised at how quickly they were able to get back to their horse after realizing that a raider group was there. As far as the university situation goes, I do really like how they included the scene with Ellie seeing a monkey for the first time, along with the monkey misdirect later on where they open a door and it just turns out to be monkeys in the research room, and along with Ellie even giving the line talking about how the Fireflies must have turned into monkeys after all the research they've been doing. The game does this situation much better, with Joel getting injured inside the university and having to fight your way out as Joel bleeds out. I can see how that would be either difficult or unrealistic to portray in live action, so I get why they did it this way, just like how they had Joel only get stabbed instead of falling on a rebar that pierces right through him. But then again, we saw it in The Walking Dead, and I guess that was pretty unrealistic too, but I'm interested to see how they portray Ellie being able to take care of Joel by himself, including bringing him somewhere safe and patching him up. Considering episode 7 follows the Left Behind DLC, it'll be interesting to see how the show decides to cover that between the flashbacks with Riley to Ellie taking care of Joel in the modern day, but episode 7's literally right around the corner, so we'll put a pin in this conversation for now and return to it in a day or so after episode 7 airs. All in all, this was a pretty solid episode. I think Tommy's actor was a complete standout, and I'm glad to say that video game Tommy's legacy is in good hands. This episode gets a solid 8 out of 10 for me. It succeeded in what it wanted to do, even if there wasn't any action in it until the final few moments. It'd be nice to see more infected in the show, as we sometimes go a full episode or two without seeing any, but I don't truly mind due to how impressive the show has been otherwise. Like seeing the clickers in episode 2 is awesome, and even seeing a bloater in the last episode was amazing, so I can see why they'd kind of want to chill out after that huge set piece from the last episode. I get that the whole Jackson story is not really the place for infected, but like I want to see crazy clickers every episode, you know what I mean? Also, apologies for this review coming out so late into the week. I've just been busy working on some larger retrospective projects that I plan to release in the next few days and upcoming weeks, but I'm still excited to see how the show handles the final few episodes of this season. Also, I do plan on making a full retrospective tier list of The Last of Us Season 1 at some point after it finishes airing, where I will be going incredibly in depth on moments that I may be glossing over in my weekly reviews, so keep that in mind and look out for it sometime in the future. But with that all in mind, I'd appreciate a like on the video if you've enjoyed anything I've said today, and subscribe for more Last of Us content in the near future. But most importantly, I thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.